Good morning and welcome to this Supporting Literacy with Teaching Books Resources webinar. I'm Crystal Ballard. I'm an implementation and training specialist with Teaching Books, and I'm so excited to show you some new features about Teaching Books and just introduce you to some of those resources. Really quickly, a little history about Teaching Books. Our mission and vision is to equitably give all readers insights and opportunities that deepen their understanding and joy of the books they are reading. And here is just one example of a video that we've created with an author illustrator. And she's actually creating her illustrations as she talks to us. So it's really cool to let our readers see that and actually see the process. We have a lot of resources that really do help our readers deepen their connections both to the books and the authors. And that's what we strive to do. And all of you have access to teaching books through Discus. So we're very excited to introduce what you have access to today. On teaching books, there are games, activities and lessons, book readings, book trailers, author interviews, resources for the books you're using. And we are lucky enough to be partnered with Sora. So we have a perfect partnership because now we have books to go along with these resources. So on teaching books, there's also collections of Sora titles, starter collections that are open access. And if you ever want to learn more about teaching books, more about Sora, you can always visit the Sora site and inquire there too. Today, we're going to talk about creating an educator login, so getting logged in correctly, discovering and sharing book and author resources, creating and analyzing lists, and then exploring and implementing. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go over to the site. When you go to teachingbooks.net, this is what the homepage looks like. I'm going to zoom in one. There we go. And I'm just going to start by searching for a title. And since this is secondary, we're going to be focusing on secondary resources today. If I do have anybody that does work with younger readers, you will still be introduced to what types of resources are on teaching books, so you'll get an idea and you can explore from there for titles that you're using. I'm going to search for The Rise and Fall of Charles Lindbergh, and you'll notice that as I start searching, it will look for books, authors, lists, and subjects, and I'm going to select The Rise and Fall of Charles Lindbergh here. Just a note, if you can see, I do not select enter when I'm searching, and my results will show up this way. If you are following along and your screen looks a little different, it might be because you select enter. And when you select enter, the results show up like this. Same results, it just looks a little different. Just wanted to note that so you're not confused. If I select The Rise and Fall of Charles Lindbergh, this is what a title page on Teaching Books looks like. We have title, author information, a summary of the book, and then a summary of resources. And one resource I just want to feature first is what we call a Meet the Author recording. And I always say a Meet the Author recording is like a book talk, just a way better book talk than I could ever do because the author book talks their book. So let's just listen to a little bit of this and think about how we can take advantage of these in our learning spaces.
Hi, my name is Candace Fleming, and I'm the author of The Rise and Fall of Charles Lindbergh. Can I tell you a secret? I hadn't planned on writing a biography of Charles Lindbergh. In truth, I didn't think he was all that interesting. Sure, I knew he'd been the first person to fly nonstop across the Atlantic, but that feat, it really didn't interest me. At first, what I wanted to write about was the Lindbergh baby kidnapping. I wanted to examine the mystery of that stolen toddler. I wanted to decipher the puzzle of it all. But as I researched, I kept uncovering all these crazy, weird, never-told truths about Charles Lindbergh. Like, when he went to college, his mother went with him. Seriously, she went with him so she could do his cooking, clean his laundry, and she even wrote his papers. And he still flunked out of college.
I'm going to pause it, but she goes on to talk more about her research, some very interesting facts she found out. And then they generally will always read a little bit too. And I love hearing directly from the authors and hearing them read their books because you kind of get a really good idea of what the intended voice is for the book. I love this one. These nonfiction titles, a lot of times these authors, when they're creating these Meet the Author recordings, will tell us what they uncovered when they do the research. And it's so cool to hear some of the interesting and weird and surprising facts that they find. This is one example of a way that we can kind of hook our readers, get them interested in maybe a title they wouldn't normally be interested in reading, featuring this and sparking that excitement about it. One thing to note about any of the transcripts here on Teaching Books is that they can be translated too. So when you're thinking of the different learners that you work with, up here in the upper right corner, you can select a language. So if you want to do select language and maybe you have an Arabic population, if you select Arabic, it will translate the transcript into Arabic, but if you press play,
Or that for a time, as an adult, Charles worked.
it will still follow along as she speaks in English. So when you're thinking about maybe meeting the needs of some of the different learners that you work with, this might be a great way to let them follow along in their native language as they are listening to the author speak in English. With Teaching Books resources, they can be freely shared. You'll see a red arrow under any book, under any list, under any specific resource. And when you select the red arrow, it will take you to our sharing tools. So if I select this red arrow here, a pop-up will appear, and this gives you options for sharing. The first thing you see at the top is that you have the option to share with full site exploration or this resource only. If you move the toggle to this resource only, it really is just a more focused sharing. So if you shared this with some of your readers, they could view it, but then they couldn't explore the site more. Whereas with full site exploration, you can share it and then they'll have all the menu options to continue exploring. You can see the different options for sharing. There's a link. And keep in mind, when you share with anyone, whether it's a community, whether it's other teachers, it's whether it's your readers, they have direct access with no login required. So if you send this link to them, they can click on it. They have direct access to this resource. They do not have to sign in. So one way to share is with a link. And then we do have some printable options as well. You can see there's bookmark options, flyer, label sheet, shelf talker. Let me open shelf talker so you can see what that looks like. This kind of gives you the ability to make any space interactive very easily because it brings up a page that's ready to be printed. There is a dotted line, and the idea is that you just hang these over the edge of your shelves. I would say these could be put also on bulletin boards. These could just be set up on desks or tables as your students come in. But what they do is they can scan this code and they're taken straight to that resource that you share with them with no login required. And we're lucky enough to have some pictures of from librarians that have sent us some ideas, librarians and teachers, how they've used it. You can see this. They had bookshelves. They just featured some of these titles with these shelf talkers hanging over the edge of the books. This was an actual display, so you can see how they used the shelf talkers over the edge of the shelves. They made the shelves talk. And then I just wanted to show you what the other options for sharing are. So here's what the bookmarks look like. You can see the code that can be scanned. There's also a link your readers can visit to go straight to the resource. And then there's labels too. So if you do have class sets, the labels might be helpful. If you select the label option for sharing, it will print 10 labels that all go to the same resource. So that's why maybe a class set, or if you have titles, several titles from the same author, you could do the labels. And one thing I really love about the labels is those live in the book. So whoever accesses the book would have access to the resource, no login required. And let's go back to the site. So again, if you want to share any Teaching Books resource, you select the red arrow. And then your sharing options are here. We talked about a link and printable options, and you'll see these digital platform sharing options as well. The thing to always remember is that whenever you share, whoever you share with has direct access, no login required. So now let's go look for another title. And I'm actually going to do the Percy Jackson series because on Teaching Books, you can search by specific titles, series, lists. If I type in Percy here, it's going to look for the Percy Jackson books or any authors with that name. But then you'll see under list of words and series, there's the Percy Jackson and Olympian series. If I click here, it takes you to the series page with the titles in order. And again, this could be something you share with your readers. You could have bookmarks and have the series displayed. But if your readers have the bookmarks with this, then if they read the first book, they could figure out what the next book is and explore some of the resources to go with that. If I click on any of these books within the series, it will be taken to a page that looks just like we were on for The Rise and Fall of Charles Lindbergh. You'll see the same things like title, author information if it is part of a series or has related editions like graphic versions, summary resources, and then we have some of those featured resources up here. Now, this one does have a Meet the Author recording, which is what we listened to just barely. But what I'm going to play is the name pronunciation, because that's another thing here on Teaching Books that we have several of. And our readers tend to love these because they get to hear the authors introduce themselves. And this just happens to be one author that I was pronouncing his name wrong for a long time, but now I will never forget how to pronounce it.
Hi, my name is Rick Riordan. Long I, like in rye bread.
Long I like rye bread. Now I will never forget how to pronounce his name. But if you wanted to feature some of Rick Riordan's books, you could always have some of his books like on a display on top of some shelves. But you could use the sharing option and maybe use bookmarks or a shelf talker that goes straight to this name pronunciation. So you're featuring his titles and you're letting him introduce himself to your readers. Then if we go back to the page, something else that has been very popular on the page, and what I'm really doing is showing you some of the favorite resources for readers at the levels that y'all are working with. So for our secondary readers. And this next one's a little surprising to me. If I scroll down here, what I want to show you is on any book page. So we're on the Lightning Thief right now. If you scroll down under the cover image, there's the option to play book cover jigsaw. So we have there's word search, jigsaw. You can view an ebook preview. Well, for our middle school students, the book cover jigsaw has been quite popular. And basically what happens if you open it, and just like any other resource, these jigsaws can also be shared. You can see the option to share up here. So if you shared a link with your readers, they would then come straight to this page. And they can pick the number of pieces. Now, why this has become popular, and we've had some middle school educators tell us, what their students like doing is selecting the highest number of pieces. And I'm not going to do that in this instance. I'm going to show you with 4 pieces, but they select the 64 piece. When it opens up, you'll see a timer begin. And they like to race each other. But what a fun and very engaging way to get them interested in a next read or a featured title. And this way they're adding a little competition in because they get to do this. They get to do this timed against each other. So another thing to share as a way to spark some interest with some titles you're featuring would be this playbook cover jigsaw option here. And that will be on any book page. Also on these book pages, as you scroll down, you're going to see even more resources within accordion menus, original resources here that Teaching Books has created, author resources, author interviews. And a really helpful section is the book guides, activities, and lesson sections. Whether you're featuring a title, maybe doing a book club, even doing literature circles, you can come here for ideas to help prompt discussions and even just get ideas for activities to go along with the book too, to really spark that interest. And here you'll see we have these ones highlighted in red, our templates that we've created on Teaching Books. There's unit plan here, but something that has been very, very popular are our digital escape rooms that we have available. And I'll show you the collection of those, but let me just show you, if you select any of these red arrows, your readers will be taken straight to the beginning of a digital escape room. And you can see here, they answer the first question and then they continue. These are very popular. I always say, you could just have, if you select the share option, could have bookmarks at the checkout desk. So even if they're not reading that book, they can take the bookmark home, scan the code, or go to the link code, or link, and then they can complete the digital escape room. So this just gives you an opportunity. It could be not just at the checkout desk. If you work in a classroom too, regardless of your learning space, these could even be an exit slip. So this can be taken home with them and done at home because the digital escape rooms can be done anywhere as long as they have this code or this link. They'll be taken straight to the digital escape room with no login required. So digital escape rooms we do have them available for all levels. So if you want to look at other titles that have digital escape rooms attached, one thing to remember is they are located under book guides, activities, and lessons. But if you just type in digital or escape in the search bar, you'll see under lists, awards, and series, there's a digital escape rooms list here. We have 30 titles from all levels that have digital escape rooms attached. So if I go here and I filter by grade level, over here on the left, you can filter. If I filter by grade level, maybe I'm looking only at 9-12 ones. You'll see what titles that have escape rooms that are in the 9-12 grade range. And I love that we have some of these classics on here. So if I open A Midsummer Night's Dream and scroll down, just remember they're under book guides, activities, and lessons. And you're going to see a lot of resources here. But you're just looking, if you were looking for a digital escape room, you will see it. Digital escape room will show up first in these resources. And again, if you share it by using that share arrow, they'll be taken straight to the form to start the escape. And as I'm going, please, if you have questions, go ahead and write them in the chat. I will answer them if you have any. So again, that was digital escape rooms, very popular, very easy to share. You have your same sharing options. And you could pick how you wanted to infuse those into your learning space. So we've talked about Meet the Author recordings, which are like those book talks. We've talked about the name pronunciations, and we've talked about digital escape rooms. So speaking of these classics, some other very popular resources are attached to these classics. We have A Midsummer's Night Dream open, but I'm going to even show you if we open up Romeo and Juliet, you're going to see how many resources have also been attached to Romeo and Juliet. We are very lucky to have a team of professional librarians that will go and vet sites to add content and resources here on TeachingBooks. So if we scroll down on Romeo and Juliet, under book guides, activities, and lessons, you're going to see 44 resources. It's going to start with resources that we've created here on TeachingBooks. And then as we scroll down, you're going to see even more. And again, this is where it's so nice that we have this team of librarians because they go and vet the sites to find really helpful and useful resources for you. So you're going to see these literacy packs and teacher packs. They just keep going. There are some activities with Royal Shakespeare Company. But one of my favorites and something that has been a very popular resource is if we scroll down, what we call these 60-second video recaps. And these really are videos that are 60 seconds or less that just give you a tip or an idea of how to remember something or understand something better from the play. And especially when we're thinking Shakespeare, it can be hard to read and understand. So these are great little tips. And I'm going to show you this characters one because this was one where even I learned something new.
Having trouble remembering who's a Montague and who's a Capulet? I've got the lowdown on both these families and their players next. First, a memory trick. All the main characters who are Montagues have names that end with vowel combinations, just like the name Montague. Romeo, Benvolio, Mercutio. Easy, right? Same thing for the Capulets. All the main characters who are Capulets have names that end with consonants, just like the name Capulet. Juliet and Tybalt. See? On to the characters themselves.
I'm going to pause it there. I don't know if y'all knew that, but I love the idea of having that easy way to remember which characters belong to which family. And when you're thinking about this, you have the same sharing option. So if you select share here, You could have a link, you could have printable options, or if you were thinking of sharing this with the whole classroom, you could even post it to Google Classroom if you're a Google district. So you have options for sharing and letting them view those videos really quick to help them remember certain themes or characters or symbols from the story or play. And then if I go back oops, I went back too far. There we go. Another very popular resource for some of these classics, if you're interested in sharing, if you scroll down, there's an option for book readings. Now, we on Teaching Books have resources for the books you're using. Remember, we're partnered with Sora, which is an ebook platform, but we are lucky enough to have some complete readings, whether it's an act and a scene like you see here, or for some of these classics, we have complete readings done by a company called Lit2Go that we are able to add here. And I love these. These are really popular because, oh, it's not loading. Let's see if it'll load. It seems like it's a little bit stuck here. Normally, when we show these, it will load, and what you'll see is a table of contents where you can select an act and a scene. Your readers can download that, but then they can also, oh, here we go. Yay. So if you shared it, they'd be taken straight here. Let's say Act 1, Scene 2 was assigned. They have the ability to download this, but they then can listen to the whole thing as well as follow along, and it's a narrator's voice.
Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare.
So if you wanted to share this, remember you can share this with all your students at the same time. No copyright infringement. They can all be viewing it at the same time. You have your share option. You could have bookmarks, you could have the printables, you could share with a link, or you could even post to Google Classroom. So that is the Lit2Go readings. And I'm just checking the chat. Are there any questions from anything I've showed so far before we talk about lists? Okay, let's go ahead and talk about lists. Now, if you are interested in creating a list on Teaching Books, you can. Like maybe if you have a set of titles you would like to display or feature, and you want to see what resources you can add to go with those, you have the ability to do that. You also can see what state lists or district lists might be available. If you just type in South Carolina, you'll see under lists, awards, and series, South Carolina lists that are available here on Teaching Books with resources. So we can go to see all lists, and you'll see the ones that we have here. If we open up the Junior Book Award, you're going to see the 20 titles on here. But what I love is because if you want to feature any of these, something that is very helpful is over here on the left under resource type. You could filter by a specific resource. Like maybe a Meet the Author recording. That's like those book talks that I showed you at the beginning. You can see which ones have Meet the Author recordings. Or maybe you want to feature some titles with some book trailers. 8 of them have book trailers. So if you select book trailers, you're going to see the 8 titles that have book trailers available. If we open up the last map maker, and I open this in a new tab, book trailers are generally featured up here at the top on any books page, but if it's not there, scroll down and you'll see book trailers toward the bottom. This one happens to have 2, one done by the author, one done by the publisher. So we can open this and listen.
The tail is the teeth. I had heard those words all my life. They meant that no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't escape who you were or where you came from. But they couldn't be true. I wouldn't let them be true. I would find a way to leave it all behind even if it meant I had to bite off my own tail to do it.
I'll pause it there. Just remember when you're thinking about these book trailers, if you want to use them as a preview for these titles, you always have those same sharing options. You could have bookmarks, you could use the shelf talker, you could use a link, but you could feature your titles that way. So let's go back to that list. That was here. We had the Junior Book Awards. And remember, I filtered, if I take that filter off, there's 20 titles on here. But again, I was saying I wanted to see which ones had book trailers because I wanted to feature those. So I filtered over here on the left under resource type. And now I have 8 titles. Maybe that's a list I want to save because I know that these 8 titles have book trailers, so I can feature them either month by month or all at the same time. And you can always create a list on TeachingBooks as long as you're logged in as an educator. So that's the first thing I want to go over with you. When you go to TeachingBooks, let me sign out one. Depending on where you're at, it might be say welcome in South Carolina, or it might say welcome in your district name. And you'll have access to all the resources that way, but you're not logged in as an educator, which means you won't be able to save or customize anything to your account. So that's why we want to make sure you're logged in as educators. And you can do that by going to the 3-line toggle menu here and then selecting educator login. And we're going to do, you have some options here. Oops, instead of let me show you the options. You do have single sign-on options, so you can select those, or you can also just begin by typing in your work email. It'll prompt you, if you created an account before, it'll prompt you for a password. If not, you'll go to a quick registration page where you will create a password. And once you've done that, you'll complete that process, and then you'll know you're logged in as an educator because it will say welcome in your name in the upper left corner. So let's go back to that list that I was creating. And what I did is I just typed in South Carolina and I did see all lists. And I did the Junior Book Award. And then I wanted to filter over here on the left by book trailers. And now I have my 8 titles. You can create a list anytime you see these plus signs. You can create a list one by one under each title, or I want to save all 8 of these titles to a list because I know they all 8 have book trailers and I'm going to feature them. So I select here and I'm going to select at the top, select all titles. And then add selected titles to list, and I'm going to do create new list. And I'm going to do SC Junior Books with book trailers 2024. And now I can go and view my list. And now I should have 8 titles. You'll see my title, the list title I created. And then we know that all of these have book trailers. So if I click into any of these, the book trailer might show up under here at the top at the featured, or I can scroll down to book trailers here and determine which one I want to share. If you create a list and save it, you will find that under the toggle menu here, and then your reading list. And you'll see South Carolina lists, Discus or district lists, and then any list you create. And we're getting really close on time, so one last thing I want to show you is there is a help tab up here at the top. If there's anything you forgot that I did today, there are a whole bunch of video tutorials here talking about creating lists or sharing or creating a login. You can view those there. My email is cballard@overdrive.com, and I will put that in the chat. And then we always encourage you, we do have scheduled training. So there is training here, and then you can go to scheduled webinars. They're called Webinar Spotlight. I encourage you to join. They're only 20 minutes and they're recorded. So even if you can't join us live, you can get a link to the recording. And it will really hone in on something that you can use on TeachingBooks because they're only 20 minutes. So it really focuses on one thing and you can learn more about that. But thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.